Hey peeps, Dead Rising is back.
Fantastic!
You know how to use this?
Kinda.
You know the drill, photojournalist Frank West takes on the never-ending undead in the colourful and chaotic Willamette Mall. It's been 18 years since the original came out, and Capcom hasn't just remastered the game. This time, it's a Deluxe Remaster. It's so special they invented their own term for it. If you haven't already, I highly suggest checking out my other video on the original game. I'm going to assume you've either seen that or just played the original game. If not, go play it. Or play this one, because spoiler alert, it's good. So this remaster at its basics is still the game you know and love, but put into the beautiful RE engine. This has got to be one of the best engines out there, with all the recent Resident Evil games having this as their home. Player models, lighting, and to be honest, just kinda everything look amazing when utilizing its power. So seeing how great all the new Resis have been looking, it was kind of a dream of mine to see it put into a Dead Rising game. The one and only Willamette Mall is fundamentally the same, but there are so many little changes that constantly brought a smile to my face. Hallways being packed with detail, the underground looking so clean, but the most noticeable and most exciting is the first area, Paradise Plaza, now has actual theming with it being an underwater aquatic area. There's a giant dolphin statue, some coral decorations, and kind of a bluey haze to everything. There are some other area changes, but this is definitely my favourite. This has all helped with the new lighting in this game, and it's amazing and kinda works a bit too well. When you're outside, it gets really dark and completely changes the vibe of how everything looks and feels. The HUD has also seen some huge changes. No longer will you have to look at some big ugly arrow. Now it has been changed by a very smooth compass where you can even select more than one task to keep track of. Along your way to those tasks, you'll find that all the outfits that you could find in the mall are all back and are looking as clean as ever. The remaster puts new effort into all the clothing, and that's none more apparent than the deluxe outfits. I hate that they're paid DLC, but oh man, they look incredible. This also comes with the addition of a locker that lets you change into anything whenever you'd like. It encourages you to try on all the different outfits, but let's be real, you're gonna pick the bee costume. Back to the HUD, the inventory in the top right looks nice, but I really don't like how there's one extra slot over here on the right. In the grand scheme of things, this does not matter at all, but oh man, it really annoyed me. At first I also didn't like how your health here is blue instead of the classic yellow, but now I can sort of see it as a way to tell this apart from the original. Weapons also show how much durability they have left until they break. This is a very welcome feature. Speaking of weapons, the combat here feels the same, but has had some changes. Some weapons have been slightly nerfed, so maybe you want to try something different than the small chainsaws. Animations, while mostly the same, feel a bit more weighty, and you'll have to get closer to the zombies for your attacks to land. The leveling here has also been turned up to the extreme. I got to level 50 on my first run, which if you compare to the original, is just plain insane. With the XP, there has been a lot of debate on whether this game is easier than the original, and personally I would say yes and no. The addition of an autosave is something I'm still 50-50 on, but does definitely remove a lot of the stress. Like I said, the leveling makes it feel like you just kind of destroy stuff sometimes, and you always have plenty of room for food. Then there's also the things I found a little bit difficult. It feels like there's something weird up with the hit registration when you hit a psychopath. Your first hit on them will always do a lot of damage, and then it's almost like it's on a timer until your hit can do actual damage again. I feel like this has been added in so you don't just destroy a boss in 4 hits with a stupidly broken weapon. Then there's also certain enemies that show up towards the end of the game, and they will just destroy you more than ever. They weren't that fun to deal with in the original, but somehow it feels even worse here. So overall, it's easier in some ways and harder in others. Moving on to the character models and voice actors, which have had arguably some of the biggest changes done to them. Frank himself looks much older, and man, those shoulders could lift mountains. His model is far from bad, but I still don't think it beats the original in my opinion. Funny enough, maybe Capcom thought the same thing because you can actually use the OG Frank as a costume. Mostly everyone else looks relatively the same, just a bit more clean and lifelike. The voice work here, however, is very hit or miss. I really didn't like Frank at first. I thought they were going to make him sound really stupid like they do in Dead Rising 4, but since they pretty much have kept to the original script, he's actually pretty good.
You came alone?
Yeah, I'm freelance. You know, going the battlefield alone, no crew.
Not too much of an asshole, but not someone that would just let people walk over him, like the original. I'm not, however, too much of a fan of Brad and Jesse's new voices. I honestly think they should have just kept some of them the same, and these two are the most obvious ones. Brad sounds like he just doesn't care most of the time.
The air ducts. They'll get us back into the mall. And apparently, those things aren't smart enough to use the ducts.
And Jess just sounds kinda off.
Could you show me some pictures, Frank?
I can say the same thing about the psychopaths as well. I really don't think they needed to change people like Cliff's voice actor.
You are nothing but a filthy animal!
Stephen Bloom, the original actor, is still kicking ass in voice acting roles to this day, so I don't understand why they needed to change him. They could have just brought him on to re-record his lines, but they didn't for some reason. Speaking of Cliff, now would be a good time to talk about the quote-unquote controversy with this game. In the original game, he had a backstory with dealing with severe PTSD and him mistaking you for a Viet Cong member. In the Deluxe Remaster, they changed it so he just calls you a mole instead.
Because you're a mole.
Hearing this for the first time felt super weird, but personally, I don't really think it takes away from his character. We still know he fought in a war, we just don't know which one. I'm assuming that they did this maybe so they could sell more copies of the game in other countries, but it might have just done the opposite. They also took out the erotica category when it comes to taking photos. Doing this pretty much just de-incentivizes you to perv on women. I'm completely fine with this, but it's a bit weird when they have some moments like this still in the game.
I want you to take a picture.
Also, Joe is still in the game, so it's a bit weird knowing what we just talked about. The last one I could find was the changing of race of one of the bosses. I personally don't really know what to think of this one. I couldn't find anything online about pretty much anyone having problems with how he acted. Maybe it could have come off as some sort of stereotype, but I'm not really sure. All I know is that I do like his new apron. Now with the trophies, there's actually not that much to talk about. It feels like Capcom have done a lot of cleaning up. One of my biggest talking points from the original video was Otis. He's now gone from my most hated video game character to maybe one of my most loved. The trophy tied to answering all of his calls now has you only answer 30 of them. They are fully voice acted and skippable. Not that I could skip the voice of the one and only Dave Lee from The Walking Dead. The Saint trophy probably now takes the top spot of being the hardest trophy in the game. But this is even easier with the AI being much better. Zombie Genocider is still the same except for the name being changed to Zombie Annihilator, and the fact that your kills carry over through multiple playthroughs. There's also plenty of new trophies like using the newly added rocket launcher to kill 100 zombies, and then there's one for just starting the game. And then of course, the one and only 7-day survivor trophy is now nowhere near as painful as it was in the original. You can now fast forward straight through to day 7, which usually would have been about 14 hours, now is about 3 give or take. So you already know what I'm gonna say. Game is still a 10 out of 10 baby, Platinum is still a 10 out of 10 baby, and the difficulty, it's probably gone down to like a 3. As being the 42nd person to Platinum this game, I demand you do the same thing to Dead Rising 2, Capcom. Also, bring Dead Rising 3 to the PS5, thanks, bye.